Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to welcome you to this unique session today. I see in the list more than 100 people, including partners and colleagues from all over the world. So we have all time zones online today with us. I start with a short introduction of our distinguished speakers today. I invite our speakers to activate our cameras. Yeah, and we have with us today, we are very pleased to have Professor Eugene Kandel, CEO of Startup Nation Central. We have with us Jean-Louis Stasi, Senior Vice President Innovation at Edge, Schneider Electric, and Sasson Darwish, Managing Director in the Technology Investment Banking Group, RBC. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm Uzi, CEO of SOSA. SOSA is a global open innovation company. Our job is to help large organizations implement technologies that prepare them to the future. We are all experiencing unprecedented times. The past 2 months, to me, felt like a lifetime with so many changes, changing trends, but even deeper, changing strategies and deep processes, from travel restrictions to lockdowns, and now hopefully to the next phase of starting to prepare to the aftermath. And in all this turbulence, innovators from all over the world are deeply affected. For startups, the combination of the need to preserve cash alongside travel restrictions that make it difficult to do business and close deals, the shift in demand. So the digital health revolution was naturally accelerated, but other technologies are also in high demand, while others suffer. The dilemmas of startup companies which are not yet market ready. What should they focus on? What is the real chance to close a pilot or a partnership? So today is an incredible opportunity for all of us to shed some light on these urgent topics and hear firsthand from market leaders. I invite you to submit your questions by using the Q&A button on the screen, and I will do my best to address them. So we will now start with opening remarks from Eugene. Eugene, the stage is yours.
You just need to open my video if you want me to be seen. Okay. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. It's a pleasure. My name is Eugene Kandel. I'm the CEO of Startup Nation Central. We're a non-profit organization that promotes Israeli innovation. We sort of do, in many cases, do similar things to SOSA, and we're very happy to collaborate with them. We have a bit different models, but the same goals. So what I wanted to say is mostly to our guests from abroad, but also to some of the startups to sort of put things in perspective. I think that it's important to understand that the value of Israeli tech and tech in general is going to grow because of the corona, even though it seems like corona has hurt technology sector to in many extents more than the other sectors, in some cases less, but it definitely also provides opportunities. And so it provides opportunities in the short run where we are thinking about how does technology help address the corona immediate challenges, whether it's solutions for corporates, and I may elaborate later on, governments, health system, etc. But the very interesting thing is not only how we can address some of those, and companies already addressing them, but how can we prepare ourselves as an ecosystem to address much bigger challenges that are coming because of corona, because corona basically accelerates the transition to technology and much more rapid technological transformation than would have happened otherwise. And so there, everything is going to become remote. And so all the remote technologies, as well as cyber to protect it and AI to make it much more efficient, will be rising in value. We definitely have interesting technologies in Israel. There will be digital health. Uzi already mentioned that. Digital health will become much more important for a variety of reasons. Some of them that health systems no longer can afford to be overwhelmed. And so you cannot just bring everybody to the hospitals. We've seen that was the biggest scare, that everybody's just gonna get sick and come to the hospital. We need to maintain distant systems. The Industry 4 sector, Schneider was our partner on the recently. This was, by the way, the last big, I think, the last big conference in Israel right before the lockdown, and it showed how much how many interesting technologies exist in that space. That space is going to be revolutionized because, as we already hear, a lot of companies, a lot of countries are going to become much more localized in terms of their supply chains. Globalization is going to suffer. On the one hand, it could be bad news for exporting countries, but on the other hand, we could potentially be providing some of the solutions to make these systems much more flexible, much more agile and resilient. And finally, agri-tech is another area where Israel is strong. And so whether we're looking at either one of these areas, we should be already preparing the tools and tooling up to be part of those revolutions. So like I said, I'm very happy that we partner with SOSA. Thank you very much to our speakers, Jean-Louis and Sas. And Uzi, thank you for moderating, please.
Great. Thank you, Eugene. So now let's move on to our open discussion and get right to it. Let's speak about how the COVID-19 situation has affected your technology, maybe Jean-Louis and Sas, your technology sourcing strategies. Did the priorities change? Did the stage of companies change? Are you putting more emphasis on market readiness, right? What about earlier stage companies? Jean-Louis, maybe you would like to start and elaborate on that.
Yeah, for sure. Pleasure. Thank you, Uzi, and hello everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. Maybe just as a short introduction for the audience about Schneider. Yeah, so I have the privilege to basically lead our partnership at Schneider between our mothership and world-class startups, of which, of course, many of them are from Israel. And at Schneider, basically, we do a few things, but this very simple thing is we help our customer to better manage their energy and digitize their businesses in their key markets, which are for us buildings, everything from the home to commercial buildings, hospital, data centers, industry where we help digitize processes, manufacturing machines and supply chains, and of course infrastructure around electrical transportation. Typically, you can think of the EV mobility and also the utilities. And back to your question, I think with our team, we lead basically conversation between our mothership and startups on a yearly basis with approximately 100 startups. And till last year, I think our focus in Israel was mainly on cybersecurity, and we had some pretty successful investment and partnership with companies like Clarity as an example. And back to what Eugene was mentioning, this year, thanks to the excellent partnership we have with Startup Nation and the community of startups in Israel, we started to ramp up significantly our efforts to scout and partner with Israeli startups, and especially around the topic of automation 4.0, full stack, hardware, software, and digital services. And the professor mentioned the very important event that happened. Actually, you mentioned the last in Israel. I think it was probably the last in the world. That happened in early days in February in Israel, where we were able to really connect with the startup community. So I think from our standpoint, I think we actually are in a mode of acceleration. We are not in a mode of slowing down with our engagement in the context of Israel, and we'll come back after to the immediate reaction to post-COVID. But what we see as a consequence for post-COVID is we have not interrupted any of our partnership. Okay, we have not interrupted. We have always been focusing basically on partnering with startups that have already a product market fit, so that allows basically our business to get tangible benefits in less than 18 months to 24 months. And that creates some level of resiliency in the partnership. So for us, really short term, the only really immediate adjustment we can see from COVID is a kind of slowdown of the implementation of the partnership, because it takes more time. It takes more effort to reach the physical location where basically we have the POC or the implementation going on. And also we become more selective to make sure the selection of startups with whom we partner are really immediately helping him move faster and respond faster to the post-COVID reality. So that's basically the two areas which I see right now immediate impact.
Thank you. Sas, would you like to add to that? I know that RBC, we've been working with you guys for over 2 years, and despite the very different time zone, you've been very active, a very active player in the Israeli ecosystem as well. What's your perspective on the technology sourcing strategy, and how did that change?
Sure. Thank you for this. Appreciate it. Thank you everyone for being online. Just quickly on RBC, RBC is one of the largest banks in the world. We have about 80,000 employees worldwide, and we have a very large IT budget, as you can imagine, to support those employees. I want to underscore some of the things that both Eugene and Jean-Louis said. So first of all, when you think about what we went through, we literally within a span of 2 weeks went 98%, 99% online. So this is traders, bankers, commercial banking, support team, everyone else that you can imagine. So as part of that, everything that had to do with our resiliency and infrastructure to be able to support that move has been obviously double and triple down. So companies that have been helping us doing this benefited from that. So I think infrastructure, which includes obviously connectivity, cybersecurity, and so on and so forth, has benefited from that. From existing priorities that we have, obviously we had to reprioritize areas and places that we wanted to invest and acquire software. So some of it, existing POCs that we have, and we have dozens of them across the bank. Some of them have been slowed down and some of them have been accelerated based on the priorities that we have. And when you think about new engagements, I agree with Jean-Louis, and I think we see that slow down or slower pace, if you will, of new engagements and new conversations. I think you will see that probably happening in a couple of months when the economies open up a little bit and the banks will start going back in some form or fashion to the office. Let me pause there and see, Uzi, if you want to continue on a different route. But thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. That's really interesting. Thank you for pausing also, because it's so interesting that we can just speak about that and the remote services for hours, because yeah, everything is shifting. As a result of that, maybe Eugene, do you see any areas or areas of focus that have emerged specifically in your perception in the Israeli ecosystem as a result of the pandemic? We see dozens of pivots every day, from homeland security to hospitals, from even strategies with 3D printers to printing PPE and so on. What do you see in that space? Oh,
this is an interesting feature. You're absolutely right. Israeli startups are very, very fast in terms of pivoting. We started this Corona Tech website where on our Finder platform, we started coronavirus companies, so companies relevant for dealing with coronavirus. About a month and a half ago, there were about 60 companies. Today, they're close to 200. Some of them we discovered that were already relevant, but the majority actually pivoted over the last 2 months. So they were not even. So these are companies that were doing completely different things and suddenly realized that their skills or their technologies is absolutely essential. So so we now in the process of trying to combine these technologies into packages and trying to see what can we offer large corporates, what can we offer governments, what can we offer healthcare systems by bunches of these technologies So a company like Schneider that has, or RBC that has many, many employees trying to come back to offices, you need to screen them ahead of time to triage, to decide who you would want to arrive to the office, who you would not want to arrive. You want to screen them at the entry. And think about 80,000 employees, although they're not all in one place, but several thousand in one place. If you have to measure their temperature, it will take 3 hours just to pass them through. So there are systems that can be used to do that. automatically and screen. So you have two screening processes. You also have what happens if you have one person that got infected. You would not want to shut down your entire operation. You would want to only quarantine people who are in close contact with that person. How would you know? So there are systems that do not invade your privacy, at the same time allow the employer to know who was in contact with that person over the last several days. So there are a variety of systems that can really help a company to really come back to normal, for example.
Yeah. What I'm asking myself is when or at what point regulation will come in and set some order in that, because now, at least what we are experiencing is many conversations with huge companies who are starting to prepare the working environment for the return of their employees, but this is very much siloed, and I think this is a huge source of demand. Let's speak a little bit. So I think we're in an incredible situation, because on one hand, there's a lot of demand, and demand which is even more urgent than in regular times with regular open innovation cycles. On the other hand, there are travel restrictions, right? So let's speak about what is maybe the main concern of startups today, the go-to-market. So we are all used to the assumption that business is done and closed and hands are shaken face-to-face, right? And now this is not possible. So how do you manage these engagements now? Are you on hold? Are you still open for new partnerships, people you never met in person? What would be your go-to-market advice for companies now? Sas maybe, or Jean-Louis?
Sure. Let me. So I think I kind of hinted to the answer a little bit. I think for new engagement, it's going to be very difficult currently. If this is not part of the infrastructure needs and resiliency needs that we are trying to solve the problems in those different areas, then I think it's going to be very difficult. I do want to talk about what Eugene just said before. I really believe that companies will have to make their own decision and their own procedures of how you go back to work, regardless of what the state or government or city says. And I think it has to be in conjunction with real estate companies, commercial real estate companies, who usually rent out those big places. So RBC, for example, we're within a Brookfield place. So whose responsibility is it to test people? Is it RBC? Is it Brookfield? Is it American Express? We're in the same building. So I think the responsibility is going to fall on someone, and I think this is being figured out as we speak. So I think companies that Eugene mentioned that can help getting there, getting the answer faster, are going to be very important on going back to work.
I think I can echo to that, to what Sas is sharing. So first, I think to come back to the immediate response to the post-COVID opportunity and the way we can help implement it at scale, yeah, with of course in partnership with startups. So back to the problem to solve. I think you mentioned the protecting of the workforce. So there are different ways to protect the workforce. You mentioned the areas that, of course, we can implement technology like computer vision that enable basically to verify social distancing. There's a lot of things also moving, in the space of healthy building with how you can clean the air, control the temperature, the aspect of access control to protect the workforce. But there's also all the space about how you actually get access or give access to mobile worker to data and actually to connect them to assets without having them, to be on site. So with remote monitoring and all the analytics you can provide them real time while keeping them safely at distance with predictive analytics and AI machine learning, which will increase in speed and basically deployment. Of course, back to resiliency of the infrastructure. So there's a lot of requirements today from the data center guy on how to ensure remote access and cybersecurity and enhancing the element of business continuity, plus the dimension of course, edge computing, which is really how they can build basically faster micro data center at the edge. All that is coming much faster than we anticipated because of the COVID, and actually what we expected over 2 years is happening in a matter of weeks now. So I want to just to come back to those examples, and also back to the supply chain. You mentioned it. We operate, 220 factories in the world. So we are in the shoes of our customers in this context. So everything that helps track and trace, of course, the people, but also the goods. So to make sure that basically we can enhance that, while basically companies are re-engineering the supply chain right away to make them more resilient. This is a new mantra, as you mentioned it, to make sure in the same factory, actually you can manufacture many, many other things. And even now, with the COVID, with the PPE and the ventilators, we start to manufacture them in Europe or in some of our factories where it matters. But it means completely redesigning very fast the automation of the factories and connecting them and enabling that to happen. So all those needs are new, didn't happen basically even a few weeks ago. And of course, we'll definitely shape the conversation that happened now with startups. I think back to the immediate implementation. Of course, the travel ban, we see it, we don't know, but most likely it will last for a while. Yeah, so we're not going to go back to business as usual tomorrow morning. That will last for a while. So I think the benefit for a startup to work with company like us is that we are actually virtually in every country in the world and in every customer location. So we can immediately implement the POC with people, with feet in the ground. Is it in Europe? Is it in the US? Is it in Asia? And that's where basically we can help extend the startup, where we have local R&D guys, in France or in Boston, in Nashville, in Silicon Valley, where we can test, validate, without having the startup to have to travel, across the globe to be in the immediate location. So I think we have flexibility. There are ways to go around the current and short-term hiccups that happen. So that's really where we see value in this engagement.
This is very interesting. So for go-to-market so far, what I wrote down is, Jean-Louis, before you mentioned that you guys are more selective now. So that was one input. And Sas, you added that new engagements, if they don't have a direct positive effect on the resilience or the resiliency needs, they will probably be second place in priority now. And now there is now also the angle of a multinational company. So if a tech company is targeting a global company with branches somewhere close that they can work with, so this is also a consideration. I think these are very interesting insights, and really for companies who are trying to understand what does that mean, and what about the business development people, what about the sales people, and how to target the market in these times. Jean-Louis, just to follow up on the few insight on the industry or heavy industry. So obviously there are technologies that you implement to deal with problems now, such as being able to manufacture PPE on the spot without importing or sourcing and so on. What other effects on Industry 4.0 are you foreseeing? Maybe longer term effects. What will remain from all these measures that you are taking now to deal with the situation?
Yeah, I think I shared, every industrial company that have been playing the efficiency game, at global level to manufacture some pieces in Vietnam, in Singapore, connecting them in China, bringing them, real time in the end market. That will be challenged, at least for a certain part of our supply chain and then supply chain of our customers. So those elements of regionalization of manufacturing on shortened distance, which means, again, rethinking completely the way you actually automate your factories. So software-defined manufacturing, augmented operation with real-time data, remote control, and also the fact that CapEx will be really challenged in the short term. So how you move your business model to as a service business model, so that there's a lower CapEx, at the beginning, and also better cost control for the customers. That will be game-changing opportunity for startups to help with. And back to the supply chain resilience, I think really on how you automate the supply chain with robotics, but robotics that not kill basically workforce, because a lot of government will be addressing the challenge of bringing back a significant part of the population that has been put out of work back to work. So back to industry. Of course, industrialization is a major opportunity to bring back people at work. Whereas I think we have also to think out how the robotics actually will be helping people regain skills which maybe they didn't have in the past in some of the new areas that can bring back work. Yeah. So I think that's some of the area I think that we see which will drive a lot of attention short term as again the company restart the operation, but also the government look at options to actually re-engage the workforce in meaningful activities. Yeah.
Can I add something? I wanted to add something.
Yeah.
There are also some mundane issues, and Eugene will understand what I'm talking about. I think Jean-Louis, you as well. But we're working remotely. A lot of government employees are working remotely. How do you actually print something at home when you have a virtual environment where it's virtual, right? And you need to connect it to your home computer and print something in your home. So yeah, you can forward it to your personal email and print it, at home. But then some of these documents obviously are sensitive in nature, and you can't really do that. So how do you actually comply with compliance and any other restrictions that you have, and actually print something that you need to print? Okay. So if someone is listening on the call and they have a solution, I'm telling you right now, we're a buyer.
Well, we have some 150 people on the line, so and I see that we have a couple of questions coming in. But
I'm in.
It's it's incredible. It's such a basic thing that you wouldn't think on is becoming a problem, which is an opportunity maybe for a company with a solution. So this is incredible.
Just to echo to what Sas is sharing, we see an incredible rise in storage need at home, because people, start to operate from home, and of course they depend from energy, and sometimes the grid is not the most reliable source of energy. So you see a lot of area today in the world where people actually are rushing. We saw that probably storage might be impacted negatively at home because of basically the cost. Yeah, it's a discretionary cost for people, but actually on the contrary, they want to safely be getting energy at home, and they're actually getting much faster to those new technology, which we believe could take more time, but actually in the contrary we're getting much faster to maturity. So just to echo on how people are adapting to this new environment. Yeah.
This is just to add to Jean-Louis' point. This is actually surprisingly an area where Israel has several solutions in completely different technologies, but quite a few that support that base. So this is something that we definitely should talk about.
Okay. I want to move now to maybe one of the most concerning topics for companies today, which is fundraising, right? Investments. And maybe we'll start with Sas. Sas, what is your perception of the current environment for funding and M&As?
So I think maybe I'll give a little bit of a 2-month recap. So beginning of March, basically everyone was hunkered down. All the processes that I've been involved in, which are both fundraising as well as M&A, both sell side and buy side, have been on pause, as we called it. Nothing has been removed, but everything was on pause. Now, you started seeing some adverse clause or materially adverse clause, or what we call MAC provisions being called, and some big deals pulled out of the market because of that. And you saw a little bit of, a lot of gyrations, like, okay, what's going on? Is M&A is going to be closed? Is fundraising going to be closed? This was kind of March. April, you started seeing the capital markets open a little bit. You saw some companies accessing the market, raising money first in the high grade market, and then later high yield market opened a little bit, and then the convert market started opening, as well as the equity markets. So now we're kind of in May. The markets are open, regardless of the ups and downs of the NASDAQ and the Dow. Companies have access to the market. Investors want to invest in companies. And those are really two buckets. One bucket is I need the money ASAP because I need to run my business like a Lyft, for example. Or I want to shore up my balance sheet and have more cash for the next 12 to 18 months, like companies like Varonis, for example, that we just were part of their convert. On the startup side, it's interesting. Startups that are doing well, are large enough and have a big market reach, we see same engagement in terms of investors wanting to have conversations both on investing in them as well as doing acquisitions. But startups that are not as resilient or not as big or not as prolific, we see a lot of struggles there. I get a lot of emails. I try to help people. I try to connect people to different venture capital firms that may be interested in deals. I think the buy side, so I talked about the sell side, the buy side, all the private equity shops and all the venture capital firms, they have been really first triaging their existing investments, literally going one by one, making sure that they have enough cash, that they are lowering expenses and making sure that they have enough runway to run their business. And I think now we're seeing some of them coming back to the table and asking, okay, what's available now? Because they have there is a lot of money out there still to be deployed. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And even those who are open for business, we speak with a lot of investors. Some funds were just closed at the beginning of the year, Q1. So obviously they have the money. How do you see valuations, for example? What should be, should entrepreneurs today have a different approach or conduct a different conversation, which is perhaps more practical, more market fit oriented, more what have they already achieved, use of funds, and so on? Yeah, so, I just had a call just before this with another CEO of a company, just happened to be based in Israel. They were able to close a term sheet in February, just before everything kind of went south. And he has an opportunity to get more money. And he asked me, what do you think? And I said, absolutely, take it. So I think today is not the time to argue about valuation. Today it's about, it's the time to make sure your company survives this. And it's going to take a long time. There was a question in the past, on the Q&A, how long that's going to be. We believe this is going to be at least another 12 months until you have a vaccine. And by the way, you may not have a vaccine, right? There are some coronaviruses there that don't have a vaccine. Thank God they're not as prolific and as devastating as this one. So you have two world views. One, everyone gets infected and then we know what's going on and we deal with the sick people, or there is a vaccine at some point and we try to have as less people infected as possible. But both of these scenarios are going to take between 12 to 18 months. So my advice to a lot of startup CEOs and board members that I'm talking to is, if you can raise money, raise, okay? And regardless of down round or valuations, it's about survival. If you can weather the storm in the next 18 months, maybe it's okay. But if you can raise money and if you have investors that want to back you and want to help you, you should take the money.
I just wanted to add a couple of things to this. Israel raised in April, Israeli companies raised $900 million, which is significantly bigger than the average monthly raise last year, which was record year. So there's some wave coming from earlier months, like you said. The other thing that we have been working with the Israeli government, strongly advocating as well as proposing various programs to relieve some of that shortage, because, while I absolutely agree with this, with the fact that there's a slowdown and people, evaluating their options and trying to see how much they can carry the companies, this is not somebody's fault. So killing this goose that lays golden eggs just because of temporary cash constraints from the point of view of the government is at least silly, and at most they're completely irresponsible. So I think the government actually gets this, and there are quite a few projects and programs that allow startups and their investors who are willing to invest new money to actually get some reprieve from that as well. So that's at least some positive news on that.
Yeah. Okay, so we're getting close to the end of our session today. Would anyone want to add like one advice, if you need to get one advice to startups listening to this session and with us today, what would that advice be?
I can iterate on that one. So I think a few things from our side. So first, we're all mindful of the fact that, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. Yeah. So, and if you look at the previous crisis cycle, this is when actually the best startups were created. And so for us, it's obviously a very important moment for us to engage with the ecosystem and keep basically communicating with startups how they are basically building their value proposition and looking for their product market fit. So we are really open to engage, and actually with Israel, we are probably going to do more this year in terms of incubation and partnership and potentially even investment. We signed just before the COVID crisis our investment partnership with Grove as an example. So the shop is open, keep engaging with us, and for sure, think of like really where the new opportunities are arising. So that's really for us. Second, I think let's take the time for you guys in the startups to connect with your customers. It's an incredible opportunity. We believe it's more complicated with the COVID. On the contrary, what we see is that thanks to the efficiency of the digital connection, actually customers are really willing to engage and listen and open up, you know, with new solution, some new way of thinking, new way of working. So my only kind of advice to the startup is make sure you benefit from this opportunity to iterate your value prop, so that when the money comes back, because there is a lot of money available from the VC, and Sas is totally right, we see actually the same. And when you look at China, other areas, actually the VC are coming back quite fast after the peak of the crisis is happening. So make sure your value prop is crystal clear and right on the right topic, so you will actually get full acceleration when the money is coming back.
Thank you, Jean-Louis. Sas, one advice?
Advice, social distance. No, I'm kidding. Social, of course, we all need social distance, but you raise money, and again, this is a cliche, you raise money when you can, not when you need to. So if you can raise money now, I think you can later fix the cap table and incentives and so on and so forth. If you have a partner that is willing to back you in those difficult times, it will back you in good times as well. And, you know, they'll find a way to recompensate management and founders. And I think reach out to other people, reach out to other CEOs, reach out to people like Uzi, to Eugene, people that have seen and have been in touch with a lot of startups, and see if you can, you know, learn from their experience and what they have been able to hear. Because not everyone, I don't think I always have the right answer, but once you crowdsource answers and you crowdsource help, you can get to a better answer. More information is better than less.
Yeah.
And very, very short 2 points. One is that it's tough, but you have to keep your eye on 2 balls, not just one. Because surviving the crisis, and like Sas was talking about raising money, etc., this is a necessary condition, but unfortunately it's not sufficient. And that brings me to the Jean-Louis point, is that if you come out of this crisis that survived, but without a value proposition for the new normal, you're not going to be, it wasn't worth surviving, because you have to really look at the longer term. And so we are trying to create some kind of insights for companies of what that long-term would look like. And the second point that I want to say, Daniel is asking on chat, you should set a problems hub where companies can list challenges like print at home. So there is a hub like that. We set it up a while back called Corona Tech. And I was actually going, after this session, was going to connect to Sasson and Jean-Louis and to ask them to post both of their, one of them, the energy storage and the printing. If you don't mind, we will just post them in under your name and say that these are real life. There are others, of course, and we're very happy to not only see challenges from large companies, but also see technologies that could be interesting for small companies. So the same website can be good for that as well.
Amazing. So thank you, Daniel, for raising this topic, and thank you, Eugene, for including more use cases on this incredible platform. And by the way, Sas, I strongly agree with what you say, and I do, as you can imagine, I do get a chance every day to speak with quite some few companies, and at least what I feel, and it might be in some way a positive effect, is that the conversation has become very practical. You know, whether it's a SAFE or a CLA or a bridge or whatever the terminology is, and the valuation, you know, you're an entrepreneur, it's your business, you're running a business, you need money to run the business. And Eugene, like you said, it's not about surviving, it's about working, it's about growing through this period. So, so you should just make the best out of it in the market conditions. And I think that we can all get rid a little bit from some of the, you know, VC world chains, somewhat, I would say, from regular times. And this brings many conversations to very practical lines also. It has to do also, Eugene, with what you said about the COVID-19 effect. Yes, people need to make sure that if the COVID-19 doesn't have a positive effect on their product or offering or market fit, at least not a negative one. Otherwise, there is no reason to wait 12 to 18 or 24 months. So, so these are the type of conversations that we're having, and I invite our attendees today to get in touch with us, obviously, and see how we can help. So, with that, our time is up, and our session for today is coming to its close. And I would like to thank our distinguished speakers, Eugene, Jean-Louis, and Sas. I thank you again for being with us today. We have some incredible key takeaways that we took note. We'll be sending an email to all the attendees with a recording, I believe, of today's session. And I also invite all of you to reach out to us if you have any follow-up questions, or if you would like us to facilitate an introduction or a question about a use case or anything else. So in the meantime, please stay safe, social distancing, Sas, don't forget, keep innovating, and we hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.